What is up, watch fan? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Watch Shop, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite new releases from some really terrific brands in 2020. It's been a weird year, but there's still been plenty to talk about. And to help me out, here's Anna.
What is up, watch fam? Let's get right into it.
Boom, watch fan. All right, before we get into it, what are you wearing on your wrist, Anna?
I am wearing a Rolex Day Date in white gold. This has diamond markers. I actually just talked about this watch in a recent video where I talked about finding the perfect watch size for you. I think that this watch is basically perfect for my wrist. So this is a super comfortable watch to wear, and I'll be stealing it for a while. So.
36 millimeter day dates are so phenomenal. My wrist is about 7 inches. It's a little bit bigger than yours. We kind of have very similar wrists, and it's a terrific size. You know, what's so beautiful about the day date in many ways, in white gold, this point is even further, it's further proven, but even in yellow, because the watch is not oversized in the traditional 36 millimeter variation, it's not as ostentatious as the newer 40 millimeter big ones. Now, I love the 40. It's super rich. Obviously, it's a little bit gaudy. It's decadent, and I'm into it. But there's definitely something to be said about the original sizing and the I wouldn't say even it's vintage, but just that more conservative classiness that comes along with it, if that's even applicable when you're wearing a solid gold watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. What are you wearing?
I'm wearing also a 36 millimeter watch, also by Rolex, a Rolex A Chest with a beautiful original gray tritium dial. This watch is actually on its original oyster bracelet, which is super hard to find. The bracelets themselves are like a fortune if you have to buy them separately. Anyway, this watch is unpolished, a smooth bezel. This watch is basically about as sporty as Datejust get. And I love that about it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful watch. I think I just photographed it.
Both of these watches are available in the Theo and Harris Watch Shop. So if you are on the market for a Rolex, or if you're going to be in the market for a Rolex in, let's say, the next 10 years, go on over to the Theo and Harris shop and take a look. All right, let's get into the first watch. What do you have, Anna?
Let's do it. So the first watch is the NOMOS Tetra Symphony collection, which is an homage to Beethoven. So the Tetra collection is a line that already exists in NOMOS, and this is a four watch series, basically just adjusting the colors and adding new colors that is based on, I suppose, or just tribute to Beethoven, because it is his 250th birthday. So that's what this is.
It's a beautiful collection.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that the Tetra itself is one of the most surprisingly beautiful watches in person, like all of them from that line. I think they're incredible. And I love these, this color palette. I think that the subtle colors are beautiful. I totally agree.
Yeah, NOMOS, I mean, across the board, whether you're talking about the Tetra or the Orion, or you're talking about even the Zurich, which is a bit more expensive, or the World Timer, they represent an incredible amount of value. Everything, that NOMOS does, while minimalist, it is NOMOS. It is very them and uniquely them. And while, of course, in the thousands of dollars, so still not, it's not nothing as far as money's concerned, in the watch world, there are entry-level watches that punch way, heavier. What I love about this collection, obviously, is the set of dials. I'm a big Rolex Stella fan. I love beautifully colored dials, and Stellas are even, more dramatic. This has a kind of a powder, pastel coloring that I think is phenomenal. Even the blue has kind of a flat feeling to it, which is really lovely.
I completely agree. I think this is great. The only thing that I find, I guess, odd about this is that the only connection to NOMOS and Beethoven seems to be the fact that they're both German. And other than that, I find that I don't really understand why this collaboration is happening. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a very weak attempt. I think NOMOS really missed with that, and it's a shame too. I don't work for NOMOS, so I'm not familiar with the inner workings of their marketing team. I like the brand so much. What they're doing on the actual material end is terrific, but this was very, very lame. And listen, it's not a bad idea to connect your watches to, whether it's Beethoven or anything else or any other person that you can, in theory, sell more watches by using their name. But if you're going to have the audacity to use their name, there's a burden with that. You need to actually connect these two things. And the connection did not need to be material. They didn't need to put Beethoven's signature on the watch. In fact, that would have been horrible. It would have been a very tough connection to make. But the release of the collection could have been, weaved in with Beethoven. Whether they did a launch event back home in Germany or in New York or in multiple cities that, they had a classical, approach. There could have been, an orchestra. I know it sounds dramatic, but that's what you need to do when you're going to be so bold as to use the name like Beethoven or any other important name. Otherwise, you're bottom feeding. You're making money off of a famous name, and it's super lame. That's what unimportant brands do. That's not a power move. Moreover, not only would they have had to do an actual launch or event that tied these things together, but these watches and the sale of these watches, a portion of the proceeds should be going to a foundation or a cause that Beethoven himself would have approved of, obviously something in music. That would have made this collection well done. It's a shame that the marketing people at NOMOS, in my opinion, are not up to par with their counterparts on the design and execution side. I'd love to help NOMOS out. Shoot me an email, Merlin, the whole team. I'm here for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Totally agree. All right, so the next watch is 2 from Grand Seiko. They've released a lot so far this year, or they've announced, I think, 8 watches this year so far, but I want to talk about 2 that I think are really special. The first is the Grand Seiko SBGW 263, and these are all for Grand Seiko's 60th anniversary. And this one is a limited edition with a hand-engraved dial. This is limited to 20 pieces. They're retailing at $97,000. This is an incredibly beautiful work of art, in my opinion, from Grand Seiko. What do you think about this watch?
I think it's fantastic. $97,000 is obviously, a big number. Certainly most watch enthusiasts aren't going to spend $97,000 on a watch. But what I think Grand Seiko is doing here is kind of a two-pronged attack. One, by making such a remarkable watch, they are, in many ways, rewarding really dedicated clients, the same way that Rolex ADs reward clients with Daytonas. Grand Seiko is actually rewarding you with this incredible piece of art, which is, to me, beautiful. And second, this reminds me of Tesla, right? When, as far as I remember it, when Elon Musk was developing Tesla, one of the big concerns at the time was that an electric car couldn't have any muscle, right? It couldn't actually be exciting. So the first car they led with was their Roadster, right? Which was this, super fast, super exciting car. So it demonstrated, while this is not the Tesla you're going to buy, Tesla does this. We have guts, we have grit, and we're going to blow your hair back. That's what Grand Seiko is doing here. No, they know they're not going to sell this to everybody. They're only, it's a limited edition anyway. But they're saying, this is what we do. This is what we're capable of. These are our standards. And yes, you can graduate with the brand, and we have the capability to really blow almost anyone out of the water. So to me, this was a power move.
Totally agree with you, and I love how you said that. That is exactly what this seems like. This was designed by Kiyoshi Chirui and his team, and really I think this shows, in a similar way to what the next watch that we'll talk about shows, how detailed, how specific, how intensely Grand Seiko is taking this practice. And I think that it's exactly that. They're showing their chops, right? The next watch, the Grand Seiko SBGD 205, it's called the Masterpiece Collection Spring Drive 8 Days Jewelry Watch. This is 10 pieces for $185,000. You have 48 baguette diamonds and 12 sapphires, and you have an additional 48 diamonds, 12 sapphires around those markers, and then you have a diamond dust dial that's actually in the shape of the Grand Seiko lion. This is so beautiful. It's so specific. Yeah. Even the 12 o'clock marker is slightly bigger. They've just done this. I've executed it basically perfectly. I think that these 2 watches really show a different side of Grand Seiko, and of course there's only 30 pieces in total of these both, but this shows what they can do. It's just taking kind of what they already do and taking it to a new level.
Yeah, this is an incredible watch. Obviously, Grand Seiko gets a lot of attention in the sub $12,000 range, even in the $4,000 and change range. and Grand Seiko, is looked at as the brand that probably delivers the most value dollar for dollar in that range, and by a significant margin. But what doesn't get attention is the fact that if you travel up line with Grand Seiko, they have an extremely dynamic offering. This is a watch that I haven't had the chance to try on. I haven't held it, but I do look forward to being in its presence. And I'm sure it's limited to 10 pieces, and I'm sure that it will be sold almost immediately. And those 10 pieces will end up in probably world-class watch collections. And I would love to take a look in those watch collections and meet the collectors that are buying these things, because there are many people that are used to spending $200,000 on a watch, and in many cases, if you take away rarity, they're getting a hell of a lot less. If you take away collectability, like in the vintage market, you're getting basically just an old, antiquated, non-precious watch. So Grand Seiko existing in these spaces really does interest me. Obviously, the future is very bright for the brand, so I'm excited.
Yep, I totally agree. Next watch is from Montblanc. It is the Heritage Monopusher Chronograph in steel with a salmon dial. This is one of 3 monopushers that they release, but this specific example is one that I think is absolutely beautiful because I love a salmon dial. So this is just under $5,000. There is a Minerva engraving on the case back, paying homage to the original design of this watch. It's 42 millimeters in diameter, 14.7 millimeters thick. What do you think about this watch?
So the dial's beautiful. I love the complication as well. To see a Monopusher chronograph under 5K, or really to see one period, is rare. Under 5K is even cooler. This is a watch that in many ways competes with the NOMOS Zurich roll time in that it's, pretty darn complicated and finished well, but around that $5,000, price point. So that's terrific.
Yeah. Where
they miss here is the size. And I'm always talking about that, but really when I say size, most of the time I'm talking about proportions. I don't have a problem with the fact this is 42 millimeters. Yeah, you're turning a lot of clients off, but the 42 millimeter diameter is not what makes this watch unattractive. What makes it unattractive is the 14.7 millimeter thickness. That to me is far too much. Would it have been such a problem for the watch to be manual to cut off some thickness? I don't understand. I don't understand these brands. I really don't get it. I feel like the people that are going to be buying this watch that have seen it in the watch world, in the watch spaces, meaning these people read watch sources regularly, they're not just general consumers. I feel like a lot of them are going to have the same concerns that I have about this watch.
Yeah. So
to me, it's a shame. I'd love to see this piece reintroduced with better proportions, obviously a smaller size if possible. But this is where we are at the moment, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think this kind of reminds me of the AP conversation, right? I mean, you have such beautiful vintage, a vintage look with just such a disproportionately large case that it almost throws off the people it was attracting because of the look.
Bulbous cases aren't attractive by and large. There are some, like the Rolex Baselworld is very attractive because it is so small. So that's how it makes up so much of its size.
Yeah.
But when you have a watch that is 42 millimeters and 14.5 millimeters thick, I mean, not that you're not going to find a wrist that it fits well on, but you're going to have a lot more wrists that it doesn't, which is a shame.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. All right, and last but not least, let's talk about Moser's newest release, the Ventura Vantablack Black Hand. So Moser is a small brand, I think most notably sort of famous for making these one-off watches that are absurd and kind of funny, but really well done. I mean, I think that's how most people know of Moser, like the Swiss-made watch, the Icons watch. There have been a couple throughout the years that make a statement about the watch industry, and that's usually for only watch. So that's how this brand is mostly known. This watch is, I'm a little puzzled by. So this is a series of 3 watches that are all made with this Vantablack material on the dial, which effectively blocks all reflection from the dial. Obviously the crystal can still reflect light, but it's supposed to be the purest form of black there is. And then it's time only, and there are no markers. There's nothing on the dial except the hands, and they're not fully steel, they're blackened. Comes in a steel model, a platinum model, and then there's a model with a tourbillon. The steel model, which is time only and black, is $26,000. So when I look at that, I go, okay, maybe it's something to do with the movement, but no, it's time only. It's not a minute repeater, right? It's in steel, so it's not a platinum watch. It's not Weichel. So to me, what this watch has going for it is a time only movement. It's totally black. It's in steel, and the name Moser doesn't carry as much weight as like Patek or Rolex, and I just simply don't understand why it's $26,000.
First of all, I think this whole perfect blackness idea is really interesting. I actually like it a lot more than you do. I would imagine that a lot of development, time and money went into that. So right there, this watch is, price-wise or value-wise, a cut above brands that are producing watches that they've already introduced, right? Watches that, at this point, there's no R&D or design that's going into them because they've already existed for 10 or 20 years. So you got to give Moser a lot of credit for that.
That's a good point.
Now, on price, when you're doing, an analysis, you have to look at, okay, what is the, $24,000 to $30,000 category demand? What is it getting? And I don't really think that comparing it to other time-only watches like the Nautilus is fair. You have to compare apples to apples here. I think it's more fair to compare this watch to Vacheron Constantin's Patrimony or Traditional, and even this is far superior in many ways. You can compare it to Lange&Söhne's Saxonia or 1815. These are all time-only, really well-finished watches from important brands. What is interesting and why I think this watch does represent value is, price-wise, you're really more competing with a step up. You're competing more with Lange 1s. If this watch was priced more between 19 and 22, you'd be a front contender. But when you're competing, in the high 20s, people are going to be comparing you to watches like Lange's 1, which is a far more complicated watch. It is a complicated watch with way better, brand awareness and certainly better resale value. What I like Moser for the most is that you can buy them pre-owned around 10 to 13K. They're great watches in that range. You can get a time-only Moser, between well under 15K, where a comparable Lange would run you about 18. So you're talking about, let's say, 13 versus 18. So there's a $5,000 delta there, and let's even say the quality is the same, which it very well might be. But when you're talking about a Moser as a brand in general, retail Moser, it doesn't interest me. I don't feel like they have a very good brand identity. Okay, great, you released a couple of funny jokes and everyone laughed, right, and you might as well be a meme page at that point. That's not what makes a watch brand. What makes a watch brand is the watches themselves and the messaging, the serious messaging. And Moser does none of it, not really. So I like the watches. I like this watch. I don't think it's necessarily overpriced at $26,000. I would say that it is within a margin. Priced appropriately, but I have no impulse to buy it, and if a good friend or a colleague were to say they were going to buy one, I would just say, why not just wait for it to hit the aftermarket, because you're going to save yourself, 10 to 13K in 6 months when someone's bored. It's an unfortunate reality. I would love to work with Moser because their product is in many instances really good. Their designs are truly their own and they're unique. Yeah. And even on the movement side, again, the same thing. But the messaging, it doesn't mean anything to me as a brand.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there for sure. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video.
If you liked it, go ahead and like the video. If you love watches, go ahead and subscribe to our channel at Theo and Harris and check out the Theo and Harris Watch Shop for your next watch. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.